Welcome back to our three-part mini-series on where you should be financially depending on the decade that you're in. For today's video, we're going to be touching upon your 40s and your 50s. So let's start with your 40s. First and foremost, when it comes to the pool of money that we're saving towards retirement, we kind of want to be around 3 times your salary. So if our salary is roughly 100 grand, we should have roughly 300,000 saved that's just earmarked for retirement. Second thing is, you may remember in our last video we were touching upon in their 30s, we've kind of opened up a 529 to help out potential kids as they approach school, colleges, master's degree, things of that nature. What you should probably be doing in your 40s at this point is planning out projections to see if you're on pace of where you want to be. So for example, a lot of people say, oh, I have a 529 college account and there's $1,500 in it. Well, we all know college costs are going up through the roof, so we want to make sure we're on target for whatever our goal is. Now just remember, everything that we're doing for college is not a need. It's based on a want, and it's a hope that we can kind of help our kids kind of better themselves and get some educational knowledge. And saying that, some of my clients express an interest in paying for undergrad and masters, just paying for the tuition part and not room and board. There's no right or wrong, but the whole point here is to make sure you know exactly what your goal is, and based on the assets you have in there and your savings rate, are we on pace for that goal? Now, something that typically might come up in your 40s or 50s, depending on how old your parents are, but certainly once your parents start getting into their 70s and 80s, it probably is a good idea to check in on them. A lot of times we find out a little bit too late that maybe some planning wasn't put in place when it comes to our parents. And a lot of times, a lot of financial resources get kind of thrown away or could have been saved with proper planning, but because now we're in a desperate situation, maybe mom needs to go into a nursing home or a long-term care facility and certain protections weren't put in place or certain estate planning documents weren't touched upon, it's a good time to just check in with your parents to kind of see, do they have all the important things in place if they had the right conversations with the right professionals. Now in your 40s, I also believe, you've been in the working world for 15, 20 years. You probably have built up a decent amount of solid experience and knowledge. This is when you want to make sure you're getting, a proper salary or proper value for what you're able to offer institutions. Also, it might be an opportunity to open your own small business, but really in your 40s, you have the bulk of your main working years ahead of you that you just want to make sure you're not kind of stuck in a job that really doesn't have that ladder that you're kind of looking for. Now, as we go over to our 50s, where we want to be when it comes to retirement is around 6 times your salary. That's a good kind of benchmark to be at as we're approaching that retirement period of time. Now, you may remember in my last video, I said in your 30s or kind of when your family's forming, you want to have your basic estate planning documents. In your 50s is probably when I would review them again. At this point, maybe you've built up a nice nest egg and you maybe want to be putting certain trusts in place to protect certain assets. Maybe it's a situation where, you wouldn't want to have your 18-year-old kid getting $2 million if God forbid something happened to you. Maybe you would want to have that spaced out over your life. So in your 30s, you probably put in place your basic. In your 50s, you might do a little bit more complicated estate planning document, a little bit more protection or what I would call kind of control from the grave. Now in your late 50s is also when I like to have the long-term care conversation. It's not a particularly fun one. Long-term care is a reality that probably in your 70s, 80s, and 90s, if you're fortunate enough to live that long, you might have a long-term care event. A period of time where you might need to utilize care at home or an assisted living facility that might be costing upwards of $150,000, $170,000 a year. If we have that for 3-4 years, it can really cripple someone's financial kind of world. So one of the options for dealing with a long-term care event is long-term care insurance. There's different life insurance with long-term care riders. But what you want to do is sit down, analyze your options, and kind of figure out, is there an insurance policy that makes sense for me? Is there a long-term care policy that makes sense for me? Should I self-insure? Should I earmark certain assets for a long-term care event? There's no right or wrong answer here, but you just want to have that conversation, like I said, typically in your late 50s. This is also when I believe a formal financial plan is necessary. Now, if you have one in your 20s, 30s, and 40s, more power to you. Fantastic job. But especially as you're getting pretty close to that retirement period, what I like to call is maybe one market cycle away. Market cycles are typically every 6-7 years. You want to have a kind of a formal plan in place to say, all right, based on my assets, what I'm able to save, and my budget and retirement goals, I'm looking at a retirement at 63, at 65, at 69, going to part-time. But you should really see what you're up against. This way you have an extra maybe 5, 6, 7 years of maybe I should beef up my kind of savings pace to kind of get myself where I need to be. Or I can start putting my head in a mental spot of, all right, based on my financial plan, I might need to do a little bit of part-time. There's no right or wrong, but you should know your numbers. Like I said, typically mid to late 50s, I would absolutely have more of a formal financial plan in place. I hope that helps, and I hope you join me in my next video where I'm going to discuss what things you need to have in your place in your 60s and 70s. Thank you so much.